Founded in 1983, Kesson Physiotherapy celebrates its 40th birthday in June this year. Lorena Moody visited them at their premises in Jubilee Way, Faversham, and spoke to the business owner, Denise Kesson.
So we are here at the lovely clinic of Kesson's Physiotherapy with Denise Kesson, who's the business owner. And we're going to talk about the history of Kesson's, what they've achieved and what services they offer, and how they're going to celebrate their 40th anniversary. So, over to you, Denise. What is the history of the business?
You're right, we are 40 years old this year. We started in 1983 and the business was started by my mum and dad. So my dad was a local GP and my mum a physiotherapist. They started it in a room in their house. And then that outgrew that and converted the garage at home into a clinic. And in 2007, they invited me to take over the business, and we moved it up to the Abbey School. They had some incubator units there, which we took on. And then in 2017, that's when we moved up here to Jubilee Way. And then last year, we doubled the size here. So we're now 4,500 square foot.
That is progress, isn't it? So how has the work here changed over the last 40 years?
Yeah, and it is different. I think how the experience patients get with us will be different to how it was 40 years ago. It was very reactionary, I would say. So people would come because something hurt or they had an injury. They would receive treatment to get them over the pain. And then often that would be it. We take a much more long-term view, and that we're here to help people function and move in the best way possible for them, to enable and empower them to be the best version of themselves. So although, yes, the phone rings a lot of the time because people are in pain, and that's normally the start of the journey, and we call that sort of the heal phase, but then we go to a move phase where we get people moving, get their confidence back in their body. We take them out of the treatment room, so we don't spend an awful lot of time in the treatment room. We now go into one of our studios or gyms to help them get their confidence back, challenge their body, realise that actually your body is quite robust and can tolerate a lot of movement. And then ideally then we move on to the improve, which is where they have got their confidence back and they start thinking bigger than where they were. Most people when they first arrive, they'd quite happily to settle half as good as to what they were before the problem started. Once you get them back to where they were, they start saying, well, actually, now what can I do? Which
Perhaps I can do a bit more.
Exactly, which is exciting.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, your brand promise is to care, be excellent and empower. How do you as a business measure that?
So we measure it in a lot of ways. We have the sort of numbers ways that we look at. So for that, it's the number of people that we are empowering. We set a very ambitious target as a business that by the end of 2024, with all the activities we do, not just in Faversham, we have work that we do up in London and nationwide as well. We want to have empowered 1 million people to have moved better and lived better. We're currently around 650,000. So I think we will hit that target. So we count on the number that, are we reaching the types of people that, the numbers of people that we want to be making a difference to. And we look at then how long they interact with us, with the assumption that if they're getting value from how we're empowering them, they'll want to keep that relationship with us. And then we have our promises to our customers. So we ask every individual customer if they don't feel that they were cared for, if they don't feel that we were excellent or that they were empowered, then they can get their money back. So
can't say fairer than that, Denise. So how can physio help people?
So physios essentially are movement experts. So we're all about movement. And most people think they need to see a physio when something hurts and stops them from moving. But they don't come because they've stopped moving. They come because something hurts. And although we help with that, and a lot of that is around education and reassuring and helping people understand why something hurts and how they can help themselves and how we can facilitate their recovery, really what we're interested in is the functional impact, like what that's done, and we look at addressing the and improving and regaining function. So that's what physio does. Is we're all about, if something can move, then we can help train it move better in the best possible way, and keeping it relevant to the individual that's in front of them and what they're wanting to do. The movement has to connect with their desires and their sort of their big life goals as well, because otherwise, we could all be running marathons, couldn't we? But not all of us are motivated to do it. So, it's about finding what's important to that individual and how we can help them achieve that.
And what sort of common problems that you that require physio, things that you see come through your door?
The majority of what we see is back pain. I would say that makes up about 60% of our customers' complaints. After that, it is knees and then neck and shoulders.
That's interesting. When should people seek help with an issue? I know you say that most of the time it's because they've got pain, but when should they ideally seek help?
Yeah, well, it's true. And actually, when we look at, by the time people come to see us, they've normally tried to ignore the pain or do something themselves for about 9 to 18 months before they think, actually, it's now got big enough that it's affecting my quality of life, or, it's being there were things I was quite happy to cut out of my life. Maybe I didn't need to hoover, I didn't need to do this, but now it's actually, these are things I want to be able to do, and it's stopping me. That's normally what spurs someone into action. But the ideal for me, I've always said, I think if I could talk to someone on that first day when they experience pain, just to help explain them, because being in pain is hugely negative. It's not a nice experience. No. And it creates an awful lot of fear. Well, why is this happening to me? What's happening? And then you become worried about making something hurt. Am I making it worse? Am I, causing more damage to myself? So you start avoiding how you move would move normally. You start questioning a lot of things. And most of the time, if you could just understand, okay, it's hurting now, it's hurting because of this reason, and this is how it will behave over the next days, weeks, and especially if it's due to an acute injury, most soft tissue will have healed itself in 12 weeks. But pain can continue well beyond that, because pain isn't linked to the level of the injury. You see, pain is a perception. So, and anything that will influence that perception, from fear, anxiety, stress, if you're feeling more vulnerable, then we perceive things that are threatening are much bigger than they are, aren't they? And that's the same with pain. So having that conversation right from the beginning, that can completely change someone's outlook, and their outcome will be much, much better. Their issue will take less time. They'll be more confident. They won't have as many complications.
I think it's really interesting how it's very much an individual perception, how they perceive it.
You can't see pain.
No.
You can't measure pain. You may have a headache, I may have a headache. I can empathise with you because of my experience of a headache, but I've got no way to measure to see, is my headache the same severity as yours? How where is it you feeling it? How big or of a problem is it? You just can't. Nothing can see it. So it's just purely on that person. And again, if we use a headache as an analogy, even ourselves, we can have a headache throughout the day, and there are times in the day where it's more prevalent. Even if the cause is still the same, if it's down to dehydration or whatever is, or screen time, whatever the trigger has been, the threat hasn't changed in severity, but our experience has, either because if we're having a bad day, it can feel worse, or if everything else is going wrong, or you're, haven't got things to distract you, versus when you've got a day going on where everything's great and, you've got your friends around you and you're laughing and, you can just push it to the back of your mind.
That's really interesting, and I want to come on to an issue for me that I've had, which is my frozen shoulder, and what all you're saying rings so true with me in terms of limiting what I do and not seeking help till it started to impact enough on my life that I thought, I've got to do something about this. This is silly. Is this a common condition?
We don't hear about it as much because I think people are better at diagnosing it. So I think it was often people would talk about a frozen shoulder a lot, but a lot of the time it wasn't actually a true frozen shoulder. It was a dysfunction within the shoulder. So a true frozen shoulder, we don't actually know why they happen. We know that it's more common in your left shoulder than your right. We know that it's more common with people that are pre-diabetic or have type 2 diabetes. But we don't understand fully yet the physiology, the pathophysiological, like the science bit behind it. And what happens is it goes through 3 phases. So you get the painful phase, and then you notice that your movement starts getting restricted, and then the pain eases, but your restriction still lies there. So we talk about, so you've got the freezing stage, which is the pain. You've got the frozen, which is where it's manageable then. You've got a restricted range of movement. If you don't try and push that, it's quite forgiving. But if you try and think, oh, well, I wonder what happens if I force it, it'll let you know that's not happening today. And then you have your third phase, which is your thawing, and you'll start to realise that the movement comes back. And typically that takes 18 months to go through those 3 phases. So it's not a very nice thing. It's quite difficult to treat. From a physio's point of view, really, we try and help with pain management and setting expectations. That's the biggest thing, because most people are like, I just want it to go. And you're like, well, actually, this isn't. I get that, but it's not as simple as just wanting it to go. You know, your body's got to work through a process, trying to maintain as much movement as possible, because where the reason when we talk about freezing, it's actually these adhesions or these scar tissue that forms around the joint capsule, and that's what causes the restriction. But because it is quite painful and people tend to avoid the pain, they often end up hugging their arm or holding it really close into themselves, into their body, and then you get even more restriction, not necessarily because of the adhesions, but because everything just stiffens up. So it's trying to preserve as much range of movement to keep it as functional as possible as it can be for you while it is going through that. And then once it does start to thaw, you then try and stretch through that. So there are other things more invasive that can be tried. So people often like a steroid injection into the joint. That can help, particularly if it doesn't really help if it's at that frozen stage where actually you can manage it, you just know where your limitations are. But when it's acutely sore at the beginning or the freezing and people just miserable with pain, then that it's got anaesthetic in it, that can really help just calm down and allow people to sleep, because sleep deprivation is just awful, and that will we talked about threat levels affecting pain. If you're tired and stressed, then your pain perception will be exaggerated as well. So sleep is hugely important in our well-being and when we're experiencing pain.
I'm glad I'm not as bad as that.
Okay.
What other common conditions do you help improve? Now, we talked about knee, back, you said neck and shoulder. Was there anything else that common conditions?
Yeah, so again, we talk about that we're movement specialists, so we look at getting people moving. So we have the sort of injuries that you get, your musculoskeletal injuries, anything around your body, but also what we do, which I don't think, or most people are quite surprised we do, is some of the medical conditions we help with. So we have exercise classes specifically for people that are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or are pre-diabetic, and because that strength training in particular is hugely important in how you produce your own insulin and therefore can manage your glucose levels. So you can do amazing things to your body. If you're pre-diabetic, you can reverse it with exercise and diet. We also help people with heart disease or at risk of heart disease, and we have special classes. So we run them all out in the outdoor gym at the Rec. It's a great community. So people all with really like-minded, they've all got the same lifestyle diseases. They've all got a lot of the same health complications. There's a really nice community and sense of belonging around those classes, which is really nice. And we also help people with neurological conditions that affect their movement, so strokes or head or spinal injuries.
I've seen the classes at the Rec, actually,
Okay.
and I didn't know what was going. Now I know in future when I see it that it's you guys running those classes, so that's interesting. So you've talked about the classes then that you run here in the gym, and we're going to go and have a look at the gym and perhaps put me through my paces a little bit when we do that. I might regret that. Are there any common misconceptions of physio?
The main one that we hear is that people think they have to be really bad to come here. So they'll go, oh yeah, well, I'm not bad enough. It's not that bad. And I think it goes back to the conversation I was saying to you before. It's like, we don't need it to be bad. Like, we can, actually sometimes that's even better to get you in, not because we can explain it to you there, and then we can avoid you ever getting it to that stage. And that's something that's, again, going back to this pain, a real passion of mine, you might have noticed. But, we often get patients that come in and go, oh, I didn't take my pain medication today because I wanted you to see how bad it is. And I'll be like, I can't see your pain. I'll believe you, whatever you tell me. But actually, by doing that, often it's more detrimental because there's, and I use the word irritable, not them personality-wise, but their body is so irritable that they can't actually tolerate even some of the assessment. So actually, it's it's easier for us to see, because we're assessing function and movement, that doesn't lie. Whether you're taking painkillers or not, you'll still have the same available range, you'll have the same strength, you'll have the same quality of movement through a joint. So, I think that's that people put a lot on their pain is the main trigger and the main driver of when, I need to escalate it to physio. And we get that a lot. I said about back pain, but people are like, well, I've been trying to have massage or, other interventions, or I've tried heat and all of these other bits first, and now waited till it got really, really bad. Whereas if perhaps we just had a one-off conversation, you don't need a course of treatment, but just, okay, well, this is what it is, this is what you can do to help yourself, and find that out earlier. You can't say, because obviously this is the route that most people go on, but I believe that we would be able to avoid people unnecessary distress by coming in earlier.
I think that's my takeaway. Early intervention.
Thank you.
Seek early advice. Don't hang on. Don't hold on to your pain or your dysfunction. Go and get help. That's fantastic. So we're going to go through to the gym now. So Denise is taking me through to this gym, which is very large.
Right.
Great big, what do we call these balls?
Oh, no. There you go. What colour would you like?
Pink, of course.
Pink, right, then.
There are blue, black and pink large balls.
Right, have a sit on the ball. So these are really good for just getting your balance. So recruiting your core muscles. So getting those tummy muscles and glutes muscles working. So you're just even sitting there will be a little bit harder. So have a nice bounce. That's very good. So you're cheating a little bit. Just take your feet a bit further forward. You're just cheating a little bit because you're just wedging the ball against your calves. So that's better.
I've been found out.
Yes, exactly. Right. Now, you're making that look quite easy. So why don't you just try lifting one foot up off? No, you can't hold on to the ball. No. So, then.
I'm going to fall.
All right. So try. Oh, there you go. And try the other one. It's making you think, isn't it?
God, yes.
Yeah. And can you see how you all collapsed in your middle? So try and think, sit up nice and tall. Lovely. And then just
and now you want me to do that again?
I want you to do. That's better. See, you're better already. That is good. Which shoulder is it that's your problem? Yeah. You can see on that side, you can find it when... Go on, lift it again when you... That's it, and do the other side. Can you see how on that side you're finding it harder because your shoulder and legs, or arms and legs, I should say, work in diagonals. Yeah, so when you're having to lift this leg up, you're having to really stabilise on that left one, which is why you want to... move off to the side.
The other side.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So there you go. So you've experienced the big balls.
Very large.
What
else? Of childbirth balls.
Well, actually, yes, they are used. We don't use that for in here. A bit too messy. But yes, they can well be used on there as well.
Everything else seems fairly self-explanatory with all the weights and the cycle. So what would you use the cycle for?
So when we have our classes for people with we have a class specifically for people with hips and knee problems. Most people that come in there, they're either due to have surgery, so they have what's called prehab. So we've all heard of rehabilitation, which is what you do after surgery or an injury. Prehab is what you do in preparation for surgery. And then we now know, the evidence shows us that you get a much better outcome. You get better healing times, a much quicker recovery, and a quicker return to normal life. So the more we do, the more effort you put in before on improving your body, your overall fitness, strength, nutrition and what have you, the better you will do. So they often come to our classes. We use the bikes on that a lot just to get people warmed up. The classes are designed quite in a circuit, so there's lots of different exercises dotted around the room, and everyone takes it in turns to come on. So that's what we tend to use the bikes for. And then if people are coming in as an individual session, then if the physios are going to want to work them quite hard for that session, then sometimes we ask them to come in a bit early, maybe 20 minutes before their appointment time, and they'll just come and jump on a bike and warm themselves up so that when the physio's here, it's straight to business.
So this prehab, I've never heard of this before.
No.
Is it fairly well known? It's just me that doesn't know about it?
I think it is a term that medically, in the sort of the healthcare community, we are much more au fait with talking about it, I think. And if in athletes, professional sports people, they're much more au fait about talking about it now. So you wouldn't get any athlete, if they're injured and then they require surgery, they will have to do a phase of prehab. That unless obviously it's something significantly traumatic and they don't get time to do it, but it's that's really part of it. So we are seeing that a lot more now trickling down, and in fact a lot of have you heard of hip or knee schools? No. So a lot of the hospitals now, private and in the NHS, if they have such a long waiting list for people waiting for hip and knee joint replacements, that they often ask people to go to hip or knee school, and that is a lot of exercise getting them ready for the operation. It's also education about what's going to happen, setting those expectations, how long you'll be in hospital, what actually happens during the procedure, what to expect. So it just gets people, they're not then have 18 months or 2 years, which is what often a lot of the waiting time is, just worrying about something, what it's going to happen. They actually know what's going to happen, how they can help themselves so that they can then get the best outcome.
So you're celebrating your 40th anniversary.
Yes.
It's exciting. Can you tell us a bit about what you're doing?
We have chosen the month of June to mark this milestone in our business life. So the whole of the month, all on our social media, we're just looking back. We're looking back at where it started, what we've achieved, and then at the end, we're looking forward of where we're going. Alongside that, we thought we'd have a bit of fun with the residents of Faversham. We've got 40 rocks that are in our business colours, so the nice royal navy blue, and it's got our white Kesson stamp on it. We are hiding those around Faversham, and anyone that finds them can have a free class. So that's what we'd like to do, is, keep your eyes peeled when you're around Faversham and look out for these rocks, and then bring them into the clinic, and we'll get you a spot in one of our classes. And you then might want to come to one of the classes on the week that starts on the 12th of June, because all that week we're having a massive 80s theme, and all our classes we're encouraging, the staff definitely are coming in fancy dress. That is a non-negotiable, and we've put Jessica, who's on our reception, she's totally understood the brief. We've given her the budget, go and get everyone's costumes, and she's had a brilliant afternoon, I think, on Amazon, finding all sorts for people to wear, and then encouraging the people that come into the class to get dressed up too. And there'll be obviously 80s music all through that. And then at the end of the month, on the 29th, we are having a huge hurrah on the recreational ground. We've invited, or challenged, I should say, we have challenged 5 other businesses to a sports day. So it's between 6 and 8 o'clock of the evening, the Thursday, the 29th. And you will see people, we're using giant sports that are running our sports day. So there'll be all sorts of funny races going on. And to see who is the fittest, strongest business in Faversham.
I've got visions of it's a knockout.
Yeah, I think that's probably quite accurate. Maybe less glamorous.
So looking out for these rocks... Is that the whole of the month?
Yeah, well, we'll hide them at the beginning, and then it's as long as till all 40
they're all
have been claimed.
40 of them.
Yeah.
Are you going to keep people updated on how, when they need to stop looking when 40 have been...
Yeah. So we'll communicate most of that through social media. Follow us we're on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. So there'll be clues as well as to where the rocks are, just in case people do need I might not need to use them. They might have all been claimed, but in case there is trouble, then I thought I have got some clues lined up too.
So Denise, what is next for Kesson Physiotherapy?
So what's next? We're still striving for this million people to empower. So we've got to the end of next year to achieve that. And, we want to think bigger than Faversham, really. We've worked really, really hard to create the Kesson way, how we treat our patients and staff. We're really proud of what we've achieved. And, we would like to see that stands up in a scalable way and that we can have more sites. So the first thing that people will notice, hopefully, is that we're having a freshen up of our brand. So how the business looks, to try and make it, I think the Kesson Physio, or certainly the Kesson name, seems to be really well known in Faversham and surrounding areas. So how we can take that to create a brand that is received where potentially Kesson isn't known as well, but it still reflects the what experience people get. That they know that they will feel cared for, that we will strive to be excellent, and that they will be empowered.
Excellent. That's fantastic. And what a great vision you have. So I wish you all the best with that. And I look forward to seeing you taking your great strides and making all those changes and improvements. So thank you very much for talking to Radio Faversham today. And good luck with your anniversary month and all that you have planned for it. And I'm sure we'll be getting involved in some way or other.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
It's been a pleasure.
And if you'd like to find out more, you can visit their website at kessonphysio.co.uk, or you can follow them on social media.